Okay. Well, it's September 7th, so we should all start putting up our Halloween decorations. Yep, that wasn't a request either. You go out to your back shed or your garages, you grab that old box filled with Halloween decorations, and you start decorating like your life depended on it. It's the most marvelous time of year! Ha ha ha! Look how excited King is back there! Yeah, super excited. How would King dress when he went to a Halloween party? You would assume he would just wear his normal BDSM suit, but what if he went like, he's dressed like a clown or something, like, ooh, a Halloween party, so he shows up wearing a brightly colored wig and a clown nose, and everyone just doesn't know how to react to him? That would be pretty funny. King is not a clown, though. He carried his weight during Wano. But you know what did not happen in Wano? Zoro did not visit the tomb of a, several centuries old samurai, and for some reason, I'm very perturbed by that. This is perturbed Tekking. Okay, so the other day, Liam, actually, over at Grand Line Review, made a video on, like, things in Wano that he was, like, disappointed that did not actually happen in the actual arc, and it was a pretty good video, so go check that out. And there was a lot of stuff on there I agreed with, but, out of all of it, I'm just like, I wanted Zoro to visit the damn tomb. I don't know why. I mean, all it was really going to be was, like, Zoro goes to a tomb of Ryuma, who, by the way, is not even buried there anymore. So it's not like, I was making a joke like he was going to go to Ryuma's tomb and, like, a ghostly Jedi spirit of Ryuma would appear over his tombstone and, like, smile at Zoro or give him the thumbs up or something. Like, you did a good job, Zoro. Wink. My descendant Zoro. Wink. It's like, that doesn't even make any sense. His body's not even buried there anymore. His body is just destroyed. They just left it on Thriller Bark. This is the body of the sword god, a man that slayed a dragon. You're living in Wano country, a country filled with samurai, and you're the one that gets the title of sword god. You had to be the best of the best of the best, all right? And so they just, this is his body that got, grave robbed, 20-something years ago by Moria. The whole country is in mourning. I'm just like, oh no, the body of our sword god has been stolen. And then over at Thriller Bark, Zoro cuts him down. Brook's shadow leaves Ryuma, and then his corpse just falls off. They were fighting on top of a roof. So I find it funny that, like, Brook's shadow goes back to him. Ryuma's body just becomes inanimate and just hits the top of the roof and just rolls off of it and then just lands in a bush or something on Thriller Bark. It's like, this is the most sacred of all samurai in Wano lore, and he's just being like, he lands in a bush and then mice or something come out and start devouring him. Vultures come down and start ripping off his flesh. The parts of the mummified flesh that haven't been, completely wasted away yet. And now he's just a skeleton. It's been 2 years at this point. Thriller Bark is abandoned. It's just still floating out there in the middle of the Florian Triangle. Perona went back there very briefly, but just to procure Kumashi. That was the only reason she went back. So she goes to pick up Kumashi and see she's, Ryuma's like half skeleton, decayed body in a bush. She's not going to give a crap, so she just left. So yeah, that's the end of the sword god right there. Okay. But I don't know. I guess because Ryuma's introduction, or Ryuma's zombies introduction during Thriller Bark, that was the first time we even found out about Wano's existence. Brook explained a little bit about Wano, and also Ryuma explained, I am the samurai, I am the body of the great samurai from the country of Wano. Okay? So, and that was well over a decade ago. I think that was back in like 2007 when the Thriller Bark arc was happening in the manga. 2006, 2007. So that's like 15-something years ago right now, okay? And so everyone was like really excited to finally arrive at Wano. It took over a decade from, Ryuma's introduction at Thriller Bark to Wano actually happening in the stories. So I don't know. I guess I just expected there to be more with Ryuma. I don't know why. I mean, like, look, there's still probably going to be some sort of flashback to this. You know what I mean? Like, there has to be at some point. There was a lot of stuff that was, like, I don't even know a lot of stuff, but there were a few things we found out about Ryuma during the course of the Wano arc that we did not previously know. So, okay, we already knew that he was this great swordsman, this great samurai that wielded the Shusui, clear autumn water, which also makes sense why I'm making this video now. It's not technically autumn yet, but whatever, clear autumn water. I put up the Halloween decorations, so there we go, all right? So he had Shusui. We know he slayed a dragon. That was something that was mentioned back during Thriller Bark. That ties back into Oda Sensei's, one of his original works, his one-shots, Monster, that he drew way back in the 90s, well before One Piece. Now, Ryuma is the same character from Monsters, but the setting of Monsters kind of takes place in like an Old West kind of town, which it might have been how Wano looked. Maybe Wano went through like, here's the Sengoku Jidai, here's the Warring States period of Japan, and now we're in the Edo period of Japan. Maybe a couple hundred years ago during Ryuma's time period, they went to like an Old West sort of inspired, layout and architecture. Maybe, I doubt it, but maybe. But he did slay the dragon in that one shot, so if you want to go check it out, go read Monster. Also, I did a video on it and everything like that a few years ago. So we already knew that stuff, okay? And then his grave was robbed by Moria, and then Hogback turned him into a marionette, and then, Moria used the Kage Kage no Mi, took out Brook's shadow, threw it into Ryuma. All right, we already knew that. Some stuff that we found out about Ryuma during Wano, we know his title was the Sword God. That was a big deal. We also found out he was a member of the Shimosuke clan, which was also very, very relevant because we had Ushimaru Shimosuke and Yasuie Shimosuke. Now, if we're going to go along with at least my headcanon that Yasuie, technically speaking, would have been related to Ryuma. All Shimosukes would be related to Ryuma. But I like to think Yasuie is more of like a branch family of the Shimosuke, and Ushimaru was more of like the main branch, because there's no way, like, look at Ryuma, look at Ushimaru, look at Zoro. There is a family resemblance there. I don't care what Oda says. Yes, Ushimaru was not Zoro's father, but he could still be his uncle. Easy way to get around that. He could be his uncle or his great uncle or something like that. There could be something like along those lines, okay? And then there was also Kozaburo Shimosuke as well. So if you stretch the line back far enough, you're going to get to Ryuma. Zoro is a descendant of Ryuma. Same thing with Yasuie. Same thing with Ushimaru. Same thing with Koshiro, who was Zoro's master. Same thing with Kuina. I think there's a way the family line could really connect there. I guess more than anything, that's what I really wanted. I wanted maybe some further detail into Zoro's family tree. We didn't have to go so crazy with it, with like a long, drawn-out flashback. It wouldn't have been the same thing like with Sanji, because Sanji's backstory during Totland was like about himself, like how he grew up in the Germa Kingdom and with his brothers and his sister Reiju, and how his father did not like him or love him, and Sora, his mother, really loved him and everything like that. I guess Judge's relationship with Sanji's weird, where it's like he had some sort of affinity for him because he didn't just kill him outright, so that's why he just told him to leave. But whatever, that was a flashback that was focused on stuff that Sanji actually dealt with when he was a kid, all right? Zoro's backstory is, from what we know, he was born and raised in Shimosuke Village, and he lived there his entire life. There was a weird thing in the anime where he wasn't originally from Shimosuke. He was traveling around, although that might have just been an anime thing. It might have actually just been a 4Kids thing. I don't know. No, I think it was in the original Japanese anime as well, but that's not accurate, okay? He was born and raised in Shimosuke. We don't know anything about Zoro's parents, but they were probably descendants of the refugees that left Wano, okay? So, there's a whole other bag of, hammers about that. But the point is that Zoro's backstory is not in and of itself super interesting. Probably the most interesting thing about Zoro's backstory was when he met Kozaburo and, learned stuff about Enma and things way back during, the East Blue, before, he even knew about Wano's existence, okay? That was probably the most exciting thing. I don't know. Even so, there were a lot of hints that were dropped, okay, that Ryuma was a one-eyed swordsman. That was something else we found out. We didn't know about that previously. So he was a one-eyed swordsman. I think Kawamatsu and Hyo talked about how that Ryuma is the ancestor of Ushimaru, and so everybody was thinking like, oh, okay, if Zoro is Ushimaru's son, that means that Ryuma is Zoro's like great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather. It seems like that's not the direction Oda wants to go with it. So let me just ask you a question, though. I just realized, why not? Why can't you just make Ushimaru Zoro's dad or his, like, grandfather or something? Why couldn't you just make, Ryuma Zoro's, like, great times 7 grandfather or something? I don't know. Maybe... I don't know, maybe there's a reason because Kuina, maybe like that's Oda's idea. Like Oda wants, like, that's Kuina's legacy, okay, in some way. Kuina is related to Kozaburo and then Kozaburo is related to Ryuma, and so it would be weird if Zoro and Kuina were both related. I don't know. I still feel like they are, because if you trace the family lineage back enough, you would have it like, you know, Zoro and Kuina are related in some weird way, you know what I mean? And then Tashigi, throw her in the midst as well, because she's clearly related to Kuina in some way. So even if they're like maybe like cousins or something, there's definitely a family resemblance there. They look exactly like each other, for God's sake. So, yeah, I don't know, man, but like, I don't know why Zoro has to have this weird family connection to Ryuma, and it's not super direct, and it wasn't really mentioned. I just wanted that cleared up, I guess. I don't know. Maybe not like with a Jedi ghost, but you know what I wanted is maybe Zoro goes to visit Ryuma's grave. And by the way, he still probably did. It's just that we haven't seen it, and we might have a flashback of that later. Maybe that's what Oda was saving there. So whatever. I just wanted it to happen during the context of the arc. I thought that would have been a really nice capstone to Zoro's story. You know, after he fights against King, he goes to visit Ryuma's grave, and he like pays his respect to Ryuma, who's not even buried there anymore, but like kind of lays the Shusui in the grave as sort of like, well, it's not really his body, but, you know, his real body is rotting in the shrubbery of Thriller Bark. But, you know, a swordsman's blade is essentially their body. And remember, the tradition of Ringo is that every time somebody is born, they're given a blade, and then when they die, that blade becomes their grave marker, okay? So it might not be the same thing as, like, Ryuma resting, you know, in eternity with his sword, but the sword being buried there should be good enough. Like, the spirit of Ryuma may very well dwell in Shusui, so maybe we could still do the Jedi ghost thing, where, like, you know, they set Ryuma's blade into his tomb, and then, like, a spirit, you know, comes out of Shusui, and it's just like, thank you. And then he floats away to heaven, or whatever. Sword Man heaven, I don't know. By the by, while we're on the subject of Ryuma, I wanted to ask you guys, I don't know if this is just the Mandela effect for me, I'm really feeling it hard with that, but like, for some reason, I always assumed that the moment when Ryuma fought against the dragon at Wano, that was given to be 400 years ago. And I went and looked up on the wiki, and there's nothing in the timeline about that. There's nothing in, you know, like Ryuma's bio about that taking place 400 years ago. It was mentioned that he slayed a dragon, and it happened in Monsters. You see the scene with him slaying the dragon. Oda will probably rework it a little bit, but the scene probably is the same, of him cutting off the dragon's head. That still happened, but I always assumed that was 400 years ago. Like, that was just a number that was in my brain. I don't know where it came from. So somebody let me know if either I'm missing something, or there was something mentioned in a manga panel or in an SBS or a data book, and I'm just missing out, or, you know, if this is just, you know, I crossed into the parallel universe. Hi guys, I'm the Tekking from the universe where Ryuma slayed the dragon 400 years ago. That was the only difference in my universe, but hi, how are you doing, right? When Rick reset that portal fluid, I ended up back here. I don't know how it goes. Anyway, just wanted to bring that up because it was something that's been bugging me the last few days. So, right. Now, how would Oda implement this flashback, okay? Well, Wano is still very relevant to the story. The Straw Hats are leaving now. They're going to their next destination, wherever that might be. But Wano is still super relevant. Pluton has been revealed to be sleeping under the island. It might be the island itself. Mount Fuji may very well be Pluton for all we know. Whatever. We know that's still relevant, and we know it's an ancient weapon, and the ancient weapons are definitely going to come into play at some point during the climax of this story, in the coming saga, alright? So at some point, Wano's borders are going to come down. At some point, Zunisha is going to be there to be involved. You know, this is going to happen, okay? So for that reason, we're going to cut back to Wano again. It's going to happen at some point, and we may very well get the flashback then. It's just not super relevant right now, because when we find out more about the Tenryubito, maybe the past of the Tenryubito, and, you know, how they lived and everything like that, I like to think there were actual dragons at some point, and I've talked about this before, like at some point there were actual dragons. The Tenryubito rode on those dragons. They inspired fear throughout the entire land. You know, it is very Game of Thrones-ish right now. But no, honestly, seriously though, if the Tenryubito, you know, it didn't make much sense for them to be like, you know, looked at as gods their entire existence, you know, because they're just normal humans at the end of the day. They think they're superior, but the fact is that there had to be, maybe at the very beginning, there had to be some sort of like power, some sort of force that they harnessed that could really strike absolute terror in the hearts of the entire citizenry of the One Piece world, and that terror just never left, okay? And I think way back in the day, they did have dragons, they rode around on dragons. If an island did not comply with them, they would just dragon fire Dracarys, burn that shit to the ground, you know what I mean? And then the citizens of the One Piece world were just always afraid of that, okay? And then at some point, the dragons died. Ryuma, I guess, just killed them all. Ryuma stepped up to plate. He sliced off. They sent one of the dragons after Wano because they wanted to subjugate Wano. Wano was always a place that was isolationist, that never played by the rules with the world government. They sent a dragon. Maybe it's twofold. Maybe they sent a celestial dragon and an actual dragon, and they went to Wano, and Ryuma killed them both. Ryuma decapitated the actual dragon, and then he decapitated the celestial dragon, right? Because some people were under the impression that, like, Ryuma slaying a dragon isn't an actual dragon. Like, you know, the idea is maybe like a few centuries ago, might have been 400 years ago, I don't know, a celestial dragon came to Wano and is like, "You shall bow before me, samurai!" And then Ryuma just sliced his head off. But no, I think the scene in Monsters where Ryuma actually slayed the damn giant-ass dragon, I still think Oda wants to keep that canon in the story. So you could have both. You could have, back in the day, a celestial dragon rode on a dragon and Ryuma just slayed them both in the same way. And then, you know, that's like everybody allotted him as the sword god at that point. Like, yeah, sword god Ryuma, right. Okay, so then after that, he just decided, you know what? I'm gonna go around the world and cut off the heads of every dragon I see. And then Ryuma did just that. He was true to his word. There was over 2,000 dragons in the world, but Ryuma decapitated every single one. You know, that's how you become a sword god. You gotta get that kill streak bonus, you know what I mean? Okay, so no, he slayed the dragon that came to Wano. He saved the people. That told the celestial dragons at the time, don't mess with Wano. There's no hope of us ever actually subjugating it to our will, so don't even bother, you know what I mean? They've always had an interest in Wano, but they just could never get there, okay? So at some point, these dragons died out. And the reason why I think there were actual dragons is because look at Punk Hazard, where there's artificial dragons. Where, remember, Punk Hazard was originally run by Vegapunk, who was under the direct thumb of the world government. So the world government would come to come to Vegapunk and tell him, like, we want you to do these projects and stuff. And one of those projects, for whatever reason, was to make dragons. Okay? And Vegapunk's like, you want me to bioengineer dragons? And then they're like, yes. Now, why would the Celestial Dragons want Vegapunk to do that? The only explanation I can think of is that dragons were real, and then they died off, and they didn't have them anymore, and the Celestial Dragons were fearful that, like, okay, we sort of have a stranglehold on the world right now, but since we don't have dragons anymore, this might be a problem in the future. There might be a revolution at some point, and this revolution might actually succeed. Like, there could have been revolutions in the past. In fact, I'm sure there was. I'm pretty sure Dragon was not the first person in 800 years to be like, maybe we should rebel against the world government. I'm sure there were other revolutions before Dragon, and they all failed. And the reason they may have failed was because the Celestial Dragons had fucking dragons at that point. But now the dragons are gone. Maybe that's how they did their great purge. You know, it's like, oh, it's time to wipe the slate clean, send out the dragons, go all, you know, Fire Lord, Phoenix King Ozai, and just burn the land. And it's like, all right, now you're going to listen to us? Okay. I'm like, yeah. But now there's no more dragons. So maybe the Tenryubito are up there in Marijuana, and they're thinking to themselves, ah, shit, if Dragon's Revolution actually ends up getting off the ground, we don't have any major way to fight back. We don't have dragons anymore. We don't have the ancient weapons. That might be why the world government was so dedicated to try to find Pluton back during Enies Lobby with the whole CP9 and everything. They're desperate. The Tenryubito are desperate because they know that they weren't as strong as they used to be. They don't have dragons. They don't have ancient weapons. They don't have any major... I mean, they have the Marines. They have CP9. They don't have, like, nothing. They do have some ammo in the freaking revolver, but it's not enough. It's not as much as they used to have. They used to have, like, a damn freaking Browning machine gun or something. Now they just have, like, a six-shooter, and that's it. And it's like, ah, crap. All right, well, that's good to defend yourself with, but, like, if the revolution gets off the ground enough, we're kind of screwed here. Also add into the mix Luffy's Devil Fruit, and you have a major problem, right? All right, that's what I'm talking about there, okay? So when we find out about the Tenryubito, when we find out about the history of how they lived and everything like that, then we'll probably see Ryuma. Then we'll probably see more of the flashback of Wano and how exactly it went down, okay? I guess I was just expecting more from it during the arc of Wano. But you know what? As Oda has said before in many of an SBS, I just didn't have time to put it in the story. You know what I mean? I just didn't have time for it. Wano was already a really long arc. It was almost 150 chapters. I didn't have time to have a chapter where Zoro sits down and like, okay, talks to Ryuma. Or maybe Oda thought about it like this. Maybe if Oda's like, okay, I could put that at the end of the arc. I could put that at the end of Wano. And he's like, maybe he gets to the end of Wano and it's like, I have like 10 different things that I need to put in. And maybe Oda also might be thinking like, I don't want to breeze over this. You know what I mean? I don't want to put a scene in the manga that I have to just like, oh, okay, yeah, Zoro visits Ryuma's grave, and it's like 2 pages, and that's it. Maybe he's like, no, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to give more deference to it. I'm going to give more, like, time to this moment. Deference, was that the right word there? I don't know, probably close enough. But you know what I mean? Like, Oda's like, I want this to be a whole chapter, and I didn't have time to make it a whole chapter during Wano. So maybe I'll use it as another chapter way later on in the story when we find out more about the history of all this stuff. I suppose that's how it goes, right? Okay. There was something else I wanted to bring up. Something else. I forgot what it was. Hold on, let me think. Oh, yeah. I was going to do a thing where I was like, okay, out of all the chapters we had in Wano, you couldn't have replaced one chapter so we could make way for Zoro visiting Ryuma's grave? Like, I don't know, the chapter with, the chapter with Nami and Robin and Shinobu and everybody going to the bathhouse, okay? You could have just, replaced that chapter with a chapter with Ryuma's grave, at the end of the series, okay? If it's a choice between seeing Nami's boobs or seeing Zoro visit an old tomb, I'm taking Ryuma's grave, damn it! Wait. No, I think I got my priorities mixed up here. Okay, this is the only way Oda could have done it then. Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, that's me ranting about Zoro not visiting a rock in the middle of a snowy tundra. Okay. So it'll probably show up at some point later. I'm sure Zoro did go there. All right. Anyway, thanks for watching the video, everybody. Now moving on to some nice and very relevant lemming facts. Go to that intro.
Lemmings with Tekking. Let's all talk about lemmings with Tekking.
Okay, so I got sort of a simple one for you today, but it's an interesting lemming fact nonetheless. Most mice and voles and hamsters and guinea pigs and, animals of that general rodent nature are usually very skittish. They're very fearful. When it comes to the fight or flight response, most of them take the flight response, okay? They'll go running in the opposite direction if they hear anybody coming. They don't want a direct confrontation. Lemmings, not to say that they won't run away from you, it's just that out of most rodents, which is unusual, lemmings will actually fight back. So they are rather adorable, but they rather have some sort of like aggressive side to them, where if, you approach them, they are more likely than other rodents to like bite you or scratch you or like get the hell out of here, like to defend their territory and their surroundings. I'm imagining for the most part they would probably run away, but they are just a little bit more aggressive than you would expect for a rodent. So there's that. I don't think any lemming-related deaths have occurred in the world, although, out of the billions of humans that have existed forever, I'm sure some poor bastard at some point got killed by a lemming. And to you, I salute you, I guess. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching the video, everybody. Tekking, signing out. Start decorating.